You know, sometimes when I'm feeling down, I'll just put on a good old madrigal and everything feels better. Madrigals are basically the top 10 Billboard hits of the 16th and 17th century. It's a type of song from back in the day, and they were absolute bangers. Today we're going to talk about one of those, except written today and by Andrew, who is in fact American, not English or Italian, but employs some of the same techniques. So we're going to talk about madrigalisms and his piece, Invitation to Love. This is the Sound of Ages podcast. Welcome, Drew.
Welcome, Cam.
Hey, thanks. I love that we welcome each other to the place
I feel
that
so
we come off.
welcome.
You are welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's going to come back later for those of you who don't know.
That's on the nose there, buddy. That's good.
A little too on the nose. I'm not quick-witted. I wish I was quicker. The other day, one of my assistants that I teach with was like rattling up this just witty one-liners, and I was like, yeah. I got nothing, man. I'm just so slow. I appreciate the quick wit from afar, looking longingly and in jealousy of those who possess it, like my friend Drew here, who is a quick-witted person.
I'm a day late and a dollar short.
See, that was quick, even though it was about your lateness. But the thing that I love, speaking of on the nose and being welcome, today we talk about Invitation to Love, which I would classify as a contemporary American madrigal. For a lot of reasons. One of them is the madrigalisms of text painting that you so employ that are appropriate for the time period of now in the modern aesthetic, but with a very similar philosophy and principle to the Renaissance English and Italian madrigals, where they paint the text and every word has its own musical color in the moment, and it kind of moves along from thing to thing, phrase to phrase, word to word. And I think Invitation to Love exemplifies that beautifully.
Thanks.
And another thing that I like about it is I just think that it's one of those, if we're thinking about past episodes where we compare memorableness to malleableness, I think that there are really great memorable moments in this one where it feels like, okay, how am I going to say this? In our previous podcasts, we've talked about combining elements of songwriting and quote unquote, and elements of composition.
Yep.
And I feel like this does the same thing, but perhaps opposite elements.
Ooh, yes. True story.
You know what I mean? Where it's like, this has really great melodic content the way that a song would, but the subtextures are much more contrapuntal, compositionally crafted, and less reducible, as opposed to some of the other pieces that feel like some of the subtextures are compressible, reducible with a contrapuntal tune on top. So I feel like we have this sort of opposing thing. So maybe just talk us through the piece's genesis and your inspiration and how you decided to come up with it and the piece's history a little bit.
Well, it's a good example of how unremarkable I am. So a couple years ago,
What a lead. what
I'm selling hard, man.
Man.
In the
You
middle
don't have to convince me, Drew. I'm already here. You know,
you're like, no, we know how unremarkable you are. So during COVID, when we were all sitting on our hands, big time, the King's Singers, who are also sitting on their hands, through their foundation, came up with a little composition competition. And I think it was well timed and very decent and generous of the guys to do that because it gave all the choral people something to pay attention to and to care about while we
Hmm.
were all kind of, staying at home coughing on ourselves or whatever. And
Right.
so there were different categories, and this piece, Invitation to Love, I set this text because it was one of the texts that was available in that competition. And I set it for these six voices because it's the King Singers voicing. And I also wrote another piece called The Singing Bowl at that same moment, which was an SATB setting on a text that was provided by the competition, and wrote them both for that purpose. And then we, with a very early version of Sound of Ages, recorded the Singing Bowl and sent it in. And then Gesualdo Six ended up recording this piece. And the funny thing is that in some ways, this was the piece that was absolutely like tailored down to the note for King
Hmm.
Singers. And I think it landed with a thud probably somewhere in the mid-Atlantic. Um, and Singing Bowl, which was a much more experimental oddity of a piece, actually did win an award.
We'll
And we're
put a
not talking
link.
about that piece today.
We can talk about that piece. We probably should at some point, but I'll put a link in the description to our YouTube video of Singing Bowl because yeah, it is. There's now that I'm more familiar with your music than I was then. It's like, ah, man, there's all these elements, druisms that are just like tucked away in there, and it's really great. So
Yeah.
I'll
Well,
that
I was
link will be in
having
the
fun.
description.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. Yeah, that it was fun. I was experimenting in that piece, and it was an awesome, nearly first collaboration in our strange kind of confluence here. But Invitation to Love was the one of two pieces that I wrote for that competition, I guess you'd call it, sponsored by King Singers. And I guess it didn't exactly land with a thud because Gesualdo Six did it, and they did it beautifully. Um, but there is no question that it was written as a nod to the madrigal tradition. And if I go way back in my like musical formation, um, I think my real music education started when I was a real little kid, and it was my parents' record collection. And my mom's side of the record shelf was like, oh, yeah, she's a flutist and a flute teacher. So we had like Vivaldi flute concerti and things like that, and good classical records. My dad's a good singer, was sang in like community theater and stuff like that. And he loved Earth, Wind, and Fire and Billy Joel and all this kind of stuff. And I think the two of them met in the middle at Joni Mitchell. That was they both believe in Joni Mitchell, as do I.
That's pretty
But
awesome.
one of my dad's favorite things was the King Singers. So this is King Singers like 1970s King Singers. This is like the
Yeah.
original lineup singing. This was before they ever did Beatles records and stuff like that. And I love all of it, but I remember a the first album that I just remember him playing the grooves all the way off of the vinyl. It had a red cover. It was called Courtly Pleasures on the release in the US, and one side was French chanson, the other side was Italian madrigals. And that was kind of like my baby food musically, listening to those guys sing in that formation, that kind of repertoire. And then I remember later on, I picked up a copy of All at Once Well Met, which is an album of English madrigals. I was probably, I don't know, like 14 or 15. And yes, I was 14 or 15 checking out CDs from the public library, and the kind of stuff I was checking out were madrigals. I just own it.
Amazing.
In my
Here's
defense, I was also listening to rock and roll. Oh,
There it
you
is
found
right
it.
there.
Yes. Yes, that's the one.
Yes,
Oh
courtly
man.
pleasures, man.
Oh
Look at
man.
that. That is so baller. Baller is the only word I can come up with.
Yeah. Well, and I remember
Yeah.
I was at a choral music convention or something like that, and I sat down next to Simon Carrington um,
Mm.
in a hall, and I looked at him and I said, "Oh my gosh, I just need to tell you that the only reason I'm sitting here today is because of that Courtly Pleasures album," and it was a really beautiful moment.
That's incredible, man.
But that's how I heard music growing up, and so vocal polyphony um, feels very organic. It's like a founding premise in my mind.
Hmm.
And the sing-songiness of madrigals, I think is fun and it's evergreen in some
So much
ways.
fun.
It's so much fun. And they can be silly sometimes. There's no question. They're kind of, fun is not bad, right? And then some of
Right.
them are just beautiful. They're just like
Yeah.
they'll knock your socks off every time you hear it. And so, in a way, that this piece nods to those early records, and then it's also on the score. It's dedicated to my teacher, Philip Lasser, who's a professor at Juilliard. I worked with him first in Paris for a couple summers, and then privately for multiple years. And for he was the right teacher at the right time for me, exactly the
Mm.
mentor that I was craving. And he's the one that sort of started unlocking the the idea of counterpoint for me and really
Love it.
ran me through the ringer, held me to a high
Yeah.
standard. I did so many counterpoint exercises and wrote so many wacky combinations of voices in different species and all these little things. And so this piece is it's an explicit nod really to Philip with gratitude and then a nod also to those early records.
Man. And I think it's one of the things that I love about the madrigalisms too is that the sing-songiness about it just those a lot of those tunes will stay in your head and will just kind of you can kind of hum along. And I bet that if you take yourself back there, the popularity of the Beatles, Thomas Wilkes, and all those madrigalists, not as widely because of literally just technology, but in their spheres, it's like they were just as popular tunes in a lot of ways. It was the Billboard Top 40, and you would have had these madrigals that were taking the charts and maybe competing with some folk tunes here and there and some court music. But for the most part, it's this really nice. I like it because it's a blend of the craft and the sing-songiness at the same time, and I love the seeking of the third space, the combination of those two worlds. So when we get into, to me, when I first heard Invitation to Love, I was like, that's the best piece Andrew's written. We must do this. We must record this right now. like, and I was just like super thrilled and I couldn't stop singing it. Every once in a while I joke because a lot of the choral works that I listen to, I'm a weird guy because on my way to concerts that I'm conducting, I'll listen to Post Malone or Eminem or Red Hot Chili Peppers or Queens of the Stone Age. And then on my way to play hockey, I listen to madrigals and choral music, and I just gotta live in this weird yin and yang constantly thing. And I listen to like, I'm like vibing with this album of Thomas Tompkins by Aoife Giulini as I'm lacing up my skates, kind of thing. It's just like so. That aside, the if I do that, then when I'm falling asleep, those tunes just keep coming back in my head though, just like pop tunes do. And so I think that that's
Mm,
a cool thing that it's not all choral pieces are like that for me, but a lot of these kinds of sing-songy madrigalist type pieces will stay there, and it's really fun. So the phrase, if we want to dive right into it, we can think about it. It's like each phrase, the thing that makes a madrigal exciting is that it's not just how am I going to describe this succinctly? Okay, we think about declamatory text or rhetorical devices of the Baroque era, those kinds of things, and it was very much a performative, declarative style of reciting poetry or reciting any sort of prose writing in this declamatory way. And our modern sensibility would be to have whatever the single idea is, like like if I think of contemporary film, like the movie Inception or, or I don't know, Christopher Nolan's on the brain, I guess, but The Prestige, it's like there's one tone and vibe that cover the span of the whole piece of art. And pop songs have the same thing where there's kind of one vibe that holds throughout the whole thing. And even you could say symphonic works kind of tend to have that sort of sensibility in some regard. And any shift in mood or tone is either really drastic and stark on purpose or is really subtle, like the slow melting into another section to tell one
like it's
single
a
idea.
yeah, it's like a formal structural move,
Exactly, because
right?
they're still kind of telling one idea. Whereas like in madrigalisms, every word or phrase is expressed to match the color and vibe of that word and phrase, and it shifts on a dime. So some of the ones that I think of is Weep No More Thou Sorry Boy, I think. And I think that's a John Wilby one. And it's very mournful. Like weep no more, thou sorry boy. And then it gets to this moment where it's like laughs and weeps. I think I'm combining two different pieces. Anyway, and the laughs has this buoyant thing and it's happy. And then right on the word weeps, it does this weird harmonic shift into this minor chord. And so, like, every word is expressed on the nose directly as the word is supposed to be felt. And so you're like,
Right.
is this a
It's like
happy song or a sad song?
I am running up
By
the
the
stairs, I am falling down the stairs. You know,
and
it's
then I cry, and then I
cry.
laugh. kind of thing. So it's like, I think that that's what's really fun about madrigals is it takes you into the color of the moment. And so Invitation to Love is like a subtle version of that where I don't feel that quite as primitively, I guess, I don't for lack of a better word as some of the Renaissance madrigals, but it opens on this beautiful like serene kind of pastoral, not pastoral, but almost like a watercolor of a landscape or something
Oh, it
where
is kind
you're
of
seeing this
pastoral.
like
Yeah.
sunrise, you know, come and it's beckoning and it's this gentleness, right? And
Yeah.
the thinness of the texture at the opening really kind of sets that up really well. And so maybe Drew, why don't you talk about the text and how it spoke to you and how you made then some of those madrigalism decisions that you did as you kind of worked your way through the text.
Well, we could do this like playing a little game of contrast. So, we recorded a different madrigal that I wrote called Poor Richard's Madrigal, and that one
Oh
is
yeah.
the text is by Benjamin Franklin, writing under a pseudonym, and it's all tongue in cheek. It's funny, it's playful, and I loaded that one with not just madrigalisms, but it literally quotes "Now is the month of Maying," and it
Yeah.
it's all about this kind of supposed quarrel, basically about who gets the last kiss between these lovers, right? And so
Yeah.
the whole piece is structured in this kind of like funny canon where you have one voice chasing the other voice, and um, it's it's pantomime. It's intentionally funny. It might not be like laugh out loud funny from the audience but it's loaded with humor and character, and
Yeah.
like the color of the moment is everything. So if that's
Yeah.
sort of on one end of this the pendulum spectrum kind of thing, then maybe not all the way on the other end, but pretty close to the other end would be Invitation to Love, where in this case, it's a little bit, in my mind, it's less about like those kind of like character gag
Right.
things. It's less about,
Yeah.
I am running up the stairs, I am falling down the stairs, that kind of stuff. It's
Right.
more about matching the moment to the prevailing mood in the text. And you're right that it is about the color of the moment. And that really, I think you can feel that through the piece. But
Yeah.
it's more about this is a little bit more abstract rather than sort of like literal on the nose. And it's a
Yeah.
little bit more like impressionist, big brush strokes and color and light
Yeah.
than it is about cartoon,
Yeah. Totally.
right?
So to interject for just a second, I'm going to play two madrigals for you. One that Sound of Ages performed that was written back in the Renaissance. That is an English madrigal. And then the piece that Drew was just talking about, Poor Richard's Madrigal, that he wrote that we performed first on our Sing Actually program. And it's really funny. You'll see the similarities in maybe how explicit and how expressive the text is mirrored in the music. Whereas then when he's talking about being more abstracted madrigalisms in Invitation to Love, and you'll hear that then at the end of the episode.
So, for example, in the opening passage, the text says, come when the nights are bright with stars, or come when the moon is mellow, or come when the sun, um, his gold, I'm trying to read here on my own screen, his golden bars drops on the hayfield yellow. So there's a couple of things that I think stand out to that features, but that the overall impression is supposed to be this kind of gentle bloom,
Yeah,
right? It's like the
totally.
establishing shot in a movie where we're flying the camera in from a distance just as the sun is rising, and there's a little
And
bit
the
of
camera fades up, and oh yeah,
yeah, and
100%. I can
there's sort
see
of
it.
fog melting off of the
Yep.
verdant field, tipped with gold. This whole thing, and
Oh man. Yeah.
not to be too silly about it, but that's literally the mood is like let's watch this, let's feel this
Mm,
setting unfold and
yeah.
gradually blooming. And it also helps that the word come, this invitation word,
Right.
it has this hum built into it. It's a
Right.
gift to anybody who's trying to
Yeah.
write vocal music, right?
100%.
And so you get this hum. It's so gentle.
Yeah. And you can almost feel the thing that I like about that opening line is you have the solo line, come when the nights are bright with stars. But it's like the other voice is humming the same opening pitch, so you don't really notice that there's a second singer until the singer moves off of that note, and then you realize, and that's like the lingering fog or the slow or the stars shimmering in the sky. It could represent any number of things, but it's that sort of the mood, and it gets through this opening passage. And probably one of my first moments where I was like, ooh, during the first listen is on the hayfield yellow, yellow, and you have this just kind of that lingering, unsatisfied cadence, I guess, for lack of a better word, where it just kind of ends and hangs a little bit there,
Mm,
because then that propels us into the next invitation, right? Where now the color and the mood and the scene has shifted a little bit off of the hayfield yellow.
yeah. Well, there's kind of two things that come to mind when we're talking about that. The first is that when you talked about there's these subtle voices tucked in behind the opening solo voice.
Hmm.
A composer named Murray Boren taught me about this idea of orchestrating resonance.
Mm,
Um, and very often you can be sitting in a concert hall, and I think this is especially true with orchestra music, and you get to a really quiet part in a piece, and you'd swear that it must be silent or the page must be empty, but then you realize that there's like a low triple piano clarinet note being held, and the air is
mm,
actually still vibrating just a
yeah.
little bit. And it's like when you either turn the lights on suddenly in a dark room, or you turn them off suddenly in a dark room, and it takes your eyes a second to adjust to the new light intensity.
Mm,
There's that moment of adjustment where you're not sure if everything is dark, you're not sure if everything's light, but but you're wondering about it. And so there's these
because you're caught in
quiet
this
moments.
limbo. Yeah.
Yeah. So quiet moments are really special, I think, because you might give the impression to people that it's just a solo voice. You think you're hearing just a solo voice until you're like, yeah, but wait, why is there still that echo lingering? Oh, cool. And that's
Right.
the idea
Yeah.
of that orchestrated resonance. So one of the lessons I've learned from Francis Potts' exquisite vocal music, and I think everybody should listen to it all the time,
Yeah.
is never settle for a boring cadence. And I think,
Yeah.
contrary to all of those harmony exercises that we did as undergrads, a boring cadence is one that gives you the sense that it's a cadence that you've arrived at a
Well, and I think it's really interesting because if you think about it in terms of reading text, we take it for granted because been doing it for so long. But even if and so many people read with like, if I ask my students to read something for the class, come when the nights are bright with stars, come when the moon is mellow, come when the sun is golden bars or drops and the hayfield yellow. But it's like, well, what are all those little marks? Like the little swooshy mark at the bottom of the line after a word. Oh, that's a comma. That means something. So, oh, what is the dot and then the comma, the colon? Come when the sun, his golden bars drops on the hayfield yellow. Like now all of a sudden there's this inflection, there's this meaning. And I think that cadences in a lot of the ways can be an exact metaphor or simile to that, where it's like monotone reading is to boring cadences. So,
oh yeah, 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 yeah,
monotone reading is monotone speaking is to reading as boring cadences is to composing, right? That's the
yeah,
simile in my
yeah.
mind, where now all of a sudden there's this pause, there's this lift, there's this movement forward, there's this reflection, there's this abrupt stop, there's this moving through based on how you cadence. And I think this piece exemplifies that because the phrases are a little bit shorter. I find that all over the place in this piece.
Yeah, well, I think that the fact that you immediately looked at the punctuation is important because whenever I write a new piece of vocal music, the first thing that I'm doing is doing kind of my own form of scansion on the text, where I'm trying to understand what is this thing made of? How does it convey its literal meaning? How does it use language beautifully in its own terms? What are the vowels this thing is made of? What does the punctuation tell us? And the fact that the complete, it's like the fact that the complete phrase is come when the sun his golden bars drops. It's the golden bars that are dropping on the hayfield yellow, and you can't stop a phrase after golden bars or you've wrecked the meaning, even if it's metrically correct in the way that it reads on the page. To
Right.
deliver the sense of the words, you need to keep that momentum moving. And then when it drops on the hayfield yellow, yes, it's a period, but it's a period in the middle of the first stanza. This is not the period at the end of the piece. I want people to just be dying urgently to know what comes next. I don't want to lose their
Right.
attention.
Yeah. And it's, one of the things that's really subtle about it is, when you get to golden bars, drops on the hayfield yellow, but there's a rest there after golden bars. And so there's a rest before drops and after drops, which I think that's a subtle madrigalism because you have the upper voices drop, drop. It sounds
Mm.
like two kind of dropped golden bars dropping, but you can still that's where the subtlety comes in and the abstraction, because even though that wants to linger on, there's still a rest. You can carry through. There's so much energy that you can carry through as a singer through a rest, even when
Oh,
sound isn't happening. And so I think that's what gives it its sophisticated subtlety. And then there's moments like that scattered throughout the piece as well, where it's not as on the nose, it's more abstracted, but it's still madrigalism, plain and simple, expressing the text. And so the next little madrigalism that I find really fun is that quintuplet leading up to measure 15, which is really exciting. And if I share my screen really quick, you'll see this hilariousness and awesomeness of soft and gray come in the night or come in the day. That's like a straight up madrigalism into this subito piano though. And it's so much fun. That piece, that little moment there is hard to put together if you have more than one voice per part. But it works really well when you have one voice per part because everyone just kind of can wait for them. But it's a really thrilling daylight time lapse sheen going into the next bar. So
Definitely written
That's my
for a
next
solo,
favorite moment.
definitely written for a solo singer, and it's marked
Yeah.
Allergando right there. So you know what, I
Right.
don't. Some composer types load their pieces with weird tuplets and weird time signatures. I, I, I guess for what for whatever purposes. Like sometimes you want to erase a sense of clear meter, and there's all sorts of reasons to do that. I don't tend to do that because I don't want to give singers things that are stupid complex to execute, and I want to
Right.
put the singers in a position of strength. But a solo
Yeah.
line that's marked as a quintuplet moving through this allegando, I think you'll just get this kind of like do 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 do.
Right.
It's just it's again that kind of like blooming sensation, this rising of the sun
Yeah.
of the day. Yes.
Yes. Love it. And then we get to this and you, where you may, and I hear the first instance that I ever heard, the Maxfield slide.
Oh,
This is the first moment I heard the Maxfield slide at measure 19. I'm going to share really quickly again to show everyone how glorious this is. Everyone look at this line here. See, that's a portamento. That means slide from this note to this note. And I think we did it on this note anyway, even though it's not there. And then these lines obviously are doing their own thing. And it is a signature move of Drew's that he will be known for. That is, I think, very tasteful, very colorful, and really fun. Is to start at a forte and then slide up as you diminuendo into a new sonority or the same sonority in a different inversion. And so this is the first time I ever heard the Maxfield slide is measure 19 right here.
I didn't know I had become a cliche, but there it is on the
No,
page.
it's not a cliche. It's like a monument legacy. Those are very different things. Those are very different things, you know. So like what prompted you to that moment, right? Because this is one of those moments where like I wouldn't have pegged that's not an on the nose madrigalism here. But there's
Mm.
clearly some sense of meaning that you found in this texture shift. And is it preparing us for and you are welcome, or is it still connected to come whenever you may,
Well,
or
okay, so
both? I don't know.
yeah, when you call it the Maxfield slide, I mean that is pretty funny. I'm gonna invent a notation for that, and just little MS and make
MS
and just
period, yeah.
yeah, and just assume that everybody gets it, right?
And you don't put a line between the notes. You just put it
No.
between random notes at any time so they know, oh, I got a slide here. And
Yeah.
it's you've replaced in 50 years, no one will use the word portamento anymore. They'll
No.
use can you put a Maxfield slide there? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. It'll be like the next da capo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
A da capo aria with three Maxfield slides with a side of bacon.
Fries.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I think the first time I did that in a piece is a much older piece called For the Future. And there's two things going on. One is that I'm always interested in how we experience intensity,
Mm,
right? Because things can be very intense and like right in the middle of your heart in a moment of hearing music, but sometimes for absolutely opposite reasons. Like something can be really intense because it's loud,
hmm.
or it can be really intense because it's imperceptibly quiet,
Yeah.
but that sensation of intensity itself is fascinating. And
Yeah.
when I look at the text, come, O love, whene'er you may, and you are welcome.
Hmm.
There's an intimacy of it, there's a pleading quality
Yeah.
of it, there's a lot of contour in that text. And I think that whene'er you may and you whene'er you may, there's a comma after that, right? And the point is that you are welcome, you are welcome, you are welcome. It's you that
Hmm.
matters. But we
Yeah.
want to get to you through an interesting sensation of intensity and pleading. And so
Yeah.
building
Cool.
into something that lands on a forte but then suddenly shifts in its color and dynamic without radically changing its harmony is a way, I think, of sustaining or renewing a sense of intensity. But we're sort of like sliding a lever in order like a fader almost. Like we're sliding
Yeah,
a
right.
fader in order to accomplish the goal of sustaining or renewing intensity. And so we start the word may, but then we lift high out of it. And in some ways, I mean, one of the things I like about this is that when I do it, and like you say, I stay in a single harmony, but flip into some sort of other disposition, inversion, color of the same harmony. Typically, I'm working with portamento intervals for each of the voices that are not so hard to nail, right?
Right, right.
Like, okay, yes, I can slide up an octave, I can slide up a fifth. That's not rocket science. And for the lower voices, it's a clever way to flip from, a full-chested sort of, on the voice singing up into like a falsetto or a light, airy kind of sound. And if you're singing in a reverberant space, what happens is you literally get both colors at once because
Mm,
you have this like tidal wave of the forte that's still moving out through the rest of the hall, going, whoo. But by the time
yeah,
it lands at the back of the hall, you have this whoo right over the top of it,
over the
right?
top.
It's like a
Yeah,
double crested wave where you get hit twice
man,
as a
so
listener.
cool.
And the two
Right.
harmonies are the same or related harmonies, and it's kind of like it's almost a Divisi move if you think about it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like an acoustical Divisi cheat code for smaller forces. And even if you had bigger forces, I mean, it's still the slide itself also becomes part of the sound
Yeah,
that gives it that crashing. And I mean, to me, it works perfectly for the text as well because you're being very specific. The poet's being very specific of inviting love in the evening when the sun is dropping on the hayfield, when the night is gray, soft and gray, come in the day. You know what? Come whenever.
yeah,
It's like, here's the ultimate sentiment of the entire opening is come whenever you may. And so now there's this brand new thing all at once to illustrate that sort of finality of the opening idea.
yeah.
And then yeah, and the end you are welcome. And then we get to the middle section, which is so much fun. And it's this waltzy, you are sweet, oh love, dear love. Do, 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 do. Like, and it has this playful nature to it to imitate and mirror the you are sweet as the nesting dove, right? The birds fluttering. It's all madrigalisms in here. And but the harmonies are so tangy. You have these moments of great tension and then release and tension and release that just propel it forward and give it this. I don't know what emotion I would apply to it really, or what word. I'm not articulate enough to come up with some very, very cool, profound piece of English vocabulary,
Well,
but
it's
there's
marked
something yin and yang and
yeah, it's marked playfully. And so when
right.
we're talking about madrigalisms and sing-songiness, I think we underestimate the value of play, right? Like in
Hmm.
solid psychology, they talk about getting into a play state. And I
Yeah.
think what I tell composers all the time when I'm teaching and things like that is that your job is to play with your material. We have a bad habit in our like modernist corporate self-obsessed society to forget that play is
Hmm.
like a fountain of creativity. It's a joy
Yeah.
spring, right? So playful is two thumbs up as far as I'm concerned. But
100%.
I mean, there's no question about there's loads of text painting, lots of madrigalisms here, fluttering doves and all this kind of stuff. And in a way, it's a little bit, it runs the risk of being kind of what, like trite or melodramatic or saccharine, like some of the
Hmm.
funny madrigals are that we think of when we think of that kind of stuff. But I also feel like what I'm trying to do with this is obviously this is a counterpoint to the very sort of somber, impressionist, earnest kind of musical imagery
Yeah.
that we've just had. This is a counterpoint. We want to feel um, a contrast, and it's metrical and it's
Hmm.
syncopated in a way that the other stuff was not. And so we're
Yeah.
just using playfulness as a basic counterpoint to something that feels more like I don't know, like earnest serenity or pleading or something like that. And in this case, the thing that's always fun about 6/8 and any kind of triples like this is that it can be both 6/8 or 3/4,
Hmm.
depending on how you feel the thing. And
Yeah.
you get a groovy sense of syncopation when you have twos and threes that are in relationships with each other like that. Like the beginning of the second movement of the Ravel string quartet is like probably everybody's favorite cold open for a string quartet movement because it does exactly this, where and in that
Hmm.
case, it's literally I think two of the voices have the time signature 6/8, and the two other voices have 3/4, because
Mm.
yes, there's a total of 6/8 notes, but we're going to feel those emphases in interlocking, contrasting ways, and the result is grooviness.
Yeah. Yeah. Such grooviness. And it especially in a passage like if I share really quickly, everyone's gonna see my score markings, but maybe that's more fun. I don't know. But in a passage like this here at measure 34, where it's like, and bring it to rest as the bird flies. This is like such a groovy passage because it still looks even like 6/8, but the way that it's beamed and the way that when the leaps happen don't necessarily lend itself to feeling this strong sense of waltz 6/8 pulse. And so you have this ambiguous groove going on, and that exists over here. Whereas yeah, you are sweet, oh, love. And that's like, I mean, that's a completely different thing because that's like a bar of four almost,
Yeah.
happening. The thing that I love about this too, that I feel like keeps it away from that trite, maybe primitive or something, Renaissance madrigal sensibility is just the fact like this the chord on bird you have this C D flat E flat A flat C again and you double that seventh and so you have these moments of harmonic maturity I guess that and modernism that give it the tinge of seriousness that it kind of needs to keep in keeping with the fact that it's still this kind of twilight idea. And
Yeah,
so
and well, I
I
mean,
think it
I
works
think
great.
when I was writing this piece, and especially over the last couple years, um, I'm increasingly comfortable just realizing that my voice, whatever that means, sits kind of at this confluence of kind of Renaissance informed counterpoint. Like there's a
Hmm.
that is a consistent thing that I just love, and then sort of a jazz harmonic vocabulary. And so the tall crunchy chord on bird, that's definitely feels like it's out of a jazz book. And then even that the leapy stuff on the flies with those kind of rising and falling fourths. I love
Hmm.
quartal harmony in jazz. It's slippery and omnidirectional, but also curiously not hard to hear or sing. There's a certain kind of intuition that
Mm.
builds around hearing fourths and fifths as in sort of that context. And so I think this piece is an example of those forces colliding, where you've got the Renaissance
Yeah.
counterpoint and certainly a madrigal sensibility, but then it's telling its story through language that doesn't feel like it's coming out of the Renaissance.
Right. Yeah, this combination of worlds into this unique style that is Drew's voice. And I think another one of those things that makes your music distinct is that rhythmic vitality where it's constantly rhythmically energetic.
Mm.
Even if that energy needs to be slow or smooth, there's still this rhythmic, like to go to a more fundamental word, it's that you understand the passage of time in music really well and what moves us forward, what holds us back, etc. And so like this passage here, getting us back into kind of the opening section, this smooth kind of come down, you are welcome home to its nest, welcome to its nest. Come when my heart is full of grief. Now we're back to kind of like the A section, if we want to formally call it that. But I mean, even that, like when you get into the start of that transition, this rhythmic thing here looks like madness. And the first time we were reading through it, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't teach me how to music, Drew. I don't. And it's, but then when you hear it, you don't hear it that way. It's just this smoothing of color and time back. It's like the camera's fading back out. It's like we started on this big landscape, dusk, and then the camera zooms in slowly or does kind of a pan, and you just see these birds playing by their nests, and it turns really playful. And then here it's like this slow fade out back to like a wide shot again, but then you see these people here now, right, telling the story of now come when my heart is full of grief, when my heart is merry, either one, right? These opposites. Come with the falling of the leaf or with the reddening cherry. Come when the year's first blossom blows. Come when the summer gleams and glows. And glows has these really, I mean, that's one of the most colorful parts of the whole piece. Glows come when the winter's drifting snow. Snow's coming through the seasons, and we're back to and you were coming back to you're welcome. And we close with this little extended version of and you are welcome, really poignant and earnest. And um, you can hear the pleading in it of like, you're welcome, really pleading for, love to come in. And those harmonies are nice and rich and feels much more akin to the first part.
I think you said
And
it.
that takes us
There
through.
you go.
That, that
It's
takes
funny
us
seeing
through.
your marks speak. It's funny seeing your marks and seeing the notation of this piece now, which I haven't looked at
Yeah.
this score for who knows how long, a year, 2 years, more than that.
Right.
All those marks make me think, yeah, for all my rhythmic cleverness, I bet there's an easier way to notate what my intentions are. And I think one
Mm,
of the things I notice over time is that I think I'm retaining that attention to the passage of time and the rhythmic, rhythm as how we move through time or something like that. But I
yeah.
think I'm getting simpler in notating my intentions on average. This piece
Mm,
shows a little bit of um, I'm not sure I was in control of every one of those eighth notes. Um, I might
mm,
simplify the notation if I were to do that today and like change meters a little sooner or differently in those transitions and give like metric equivalents or use duples instead of dotted eighths. And there's stuff that I think I could do to
sure.
simplify it on the page.
It's which is oh man, we do not have time to talk about what I'm about to say, but maybe we can tease it up for a future episode about the difference between what's on the page and what happens in the air. And that music is not on the page, music is in the air. And how do we do our very best to capture it on the page because there's also a dialogue to be had about our partnership and collaboration of composer conductor. And it's like we're both I love our partnership so much because we're both just committed to like the best thing, the beautiful thing that is the best performance. So we'll go back and forth on what's the best ways, either in performance or on the page, to do that. And you've given me performance suggestions, and I've given you on the page suggestions, and the other to help us get there. And it's a constant struggle. But I think that in all, this piece captures this really contemplative, beautiful madrigal of this beautiful landscape scene and nature and birds and the human heart and the human condition in a really fun and playful way that doesn't feel trite and it doesn't feel overly serious either. And it has this balance of opposites. And so that's why I think it's one of those shorter but sweet, very well crafted, every note in its proper place kind of madrigals.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. Well, thanks for saying that. I appreciate that. And we should talk about the composer conductor collab at some point because
yeah,
I've had the chance to study with some really terrific composer mentors, and I wouldn't trade that for
yeah,
anything. And at the same time, I feel like some of the best composition instruction I've ever had is collaborating with conductors, obviously including you because we've
right,
collaborated so many times. But in general,
right.
like the conductor is this like super mediator facilitator where you're looking at this ridiculous encoding system on the page.
Mm,
It's like, do we need the dots? Yeah, we need dots. But people don't come into a hall because of the dots. They come into the hall to have an experience in time with this
with
sound.
sound that's choreographed together somehow.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, right.
And the conductor, it's like your job is not to stand up there and just be a metronome, clearly.
Right,
Great
right,
musicians don't need a metronome. What you're
right.
doing is facilitating this like momentary encounter with whatever the composer sort of tried to encode on the page to whatever degree of success. It's like composers are always learning how to do better with the encoding. And,
Yeah,
there's been many times when I've shared a piece with you, and this is true with orchestral pieces as in addition to vocal choral stuff, and you'll listen to a mock-up and you'll be reading through the score and I'll watch you sort of like air conduct, right? And then there's
yeah,
this moment
yeah.
where you sort of like stop for a second and you get this like huh
Yeah, the head tilt, right?
and that's when
Yeah.
I know like, ooh, there's something that isn't quite right with the dots.
Mm,
And I want to know what that is. And that can happen sometimes like early in the stage of the piece or after we've done the piece 20 times. And you'll
right.
say like, "Ooh, you know what would make this moment totally explode or what would make this moment shimmer or whatever." And so like I feel like for me, one of the most valuable things that I've experienced as a composer is collaborating closely with great conductors. And any composer who's listening or who finds this kind of thing interesting, you know, get yourself a conductor. Like find a
Yeah,
collaborator who lives at the intersection between the dots and the human beings that this music is supposed to enchant and pay attention to that intersection. So yes, that's a conversation worth having. And this was, I think one of the pieces that kind of pulled us into that
yeah,
zone together, which has been really great for me.
yeah. And me too, because it helps me think of like, this is the intention, and I can exaggerate or lean into that 5% more to pull as much. It's kind of like every little instance is a fruit, and you want to juice every single fruit for as much juice as it has instead of just letting it fall by the bucket. And it's like, we could metronomically go through this and just plunk our way and do the notes. And we do the notes, but if we don't think like composers either, of like, well, what was the composer really trying to say, and how can we aid that? And so, I would say the same thing to conductors listening: is find a composer and do new stuff that challenges you. There's no reference recordings, there's no anything, and we've got to make something out of this that has never been before. And that collaboration is what keeps the craft and the skills sharp and the sword sharp, I think. So it's been a
Yeah.
blast, but
Let's go juice
and
those
I've learned a
fruits.
ton. Juice the fruits, lemonade.
All right.
Yes. Okay, well, here is Invitation to Love coming up on Windwater Stone.
Come when the nights are bright with stars. Come when the moon is magic. the sun is golden bars. Drops on the hayfield yellow. Come in the twilight soft and gray. Come in the night, or come in the day. Come, oh come, whene'er you You are sweet, oh love, dear love, dear love. Sweet, you are sweet, dear love, dear love. You are soft as the nesting dove. Come to my heart and bring it to break, just as a bird
Thank you for joining us today. It's always really fun to nerd out about music stuff, and hopefully you had fun. Hopefully you learned a lot. Hopefully you enjoyed the piece. Do check out our album coming out Monday. No, today is Monday. On Friday, May 22nd. That's this Friday. It's amazing. The album drops. Invitation to Love is one of those tracks that you'll want to put on repeat. So do check out our album, and we'll catch you next time on the Sound of Ages podcast.